After a long summer, we're back. All of the leagues will be in full flight this week, except for the Bundesliga, including the Premier League, whereas threatening to become that very thing that many Premier League fans torched other top leagues for. Predictable. Man City won an unprecedented 4 titles in a row last season and are looking to make it 5. Arsenal have spent heavily in recent years. Liverpool have seen a change at the helm, but will it be enough for either of them to top City or someone else? What's up, guys? Hope you had a great summer. This isn't actually my first video back. I just did an in-depth look at a club whose owners are richer than Todd Boehly, Stan Kroenke, and Sir Jim Ratcliffe combined. That's on Como 1907, back in Serie A after 21 years, with none other than Cesc Fabregas as their coach. But anyway, yes, great to see you. Hope you are doing well, and this will look a bit different from my other Premier League previews that I've done in the past, as I won't go team by team. Most people don't care about my Premier League takes anyway. Do they care about any of my takes? But seriously, when it comes to the Prem, people don't really care what I have to say as much as other leagues. And so most people skip to the full table anyway. So I'll divide this into contenders, clubs that interest me as a Premier League enjoyer, and outsiders, I guess. Cool? By the way, our club and FC Quiz app is still running, man. It didn't end with the Euros. Use the link to join us as they have daily quizzes as well as weekly Premier League quizzes. So join our club by using the link in the description below and see how you stack up against the rest of the Rabona TV community. Cool outsiders now. Those mysterious guys where you don't know what they'll do next, whether they'll be good or bad, but they have your attention. Probably because they're the guys your girlfriend is attracted to. Crystal Palace is an interesting outsider, a cool outsider, as I don't see them necessarily cracking the European places, but they did look very, very nice in the latter half of last season once Oliver Glasner joined them. They started playing some lovely stuff with the combo of Olise and Eze, really stealing the spotlight and delivering some daggers to high-profile opponents. Speaking of delivering daggers, my autocorrect constantly changes their names to Olive and I, so that's always a good time for me. Speaking of Olive, he will be a big loss for them as he left for Bayern Munich for 53 million. But Daichi Kamada being reunited with Glasner, former Frankfurt fellas, is exciting as Kamada played some great football under him. Not an Olise replacement at all, different players, but some added quality for sure. Also, likely relief for Kamada after his disastrous Lazio move. Palace may also lose Mark Guéhi as Newcastle United are doing their best to prize him away, but so far they failed with 3 separate bids, and they may be looking to alternatives, so maybe Guéhi will stay. I see Crystal Palace as a team to keep an eye on. They finished in 10th as Glasner took them from 15th to 10th in his tenure, and with a full season under his belt, I think he can get them to threaten the top 7 or so, but I'm not sure that they'll make it in there. It's just so damn competitive in the top 8. For example, Brighton, they had an off season last campaign by their own recent standards at least. They finished 11th, but they've gone back to their old tricks of signing lesser known gems in the market, including their new manager, 31-year-old former St. Pauli manager Fabian Hürzeler. Hürzeler, of course, guided St. Pauli to a Bundesliga return last season, but was tempted by the Brighton project, by the bright lights of the Premier League. It's quite the gamble from Brighton, to be honest, as if you go back just 4 years, Hürzeler was a player coach for FC Pippensried, a team currently in the 5th tier of German football. He's young. He has just a season and a half of professional management under his belt. It's interesting, no? It could go great, or it could be a disaster. Preseason is really difficult to judge. It's relatively meaningless, but things have looked promising there. That's why I have them as a cool team, not necessarily one that you could see cracking the top 4 if they play well. Just a cool team to keep an eye on. West Ham is another example of this for me. Moyes is gone. Lopetegui is back in the Premier League once again after previously leaving Wolves due to some disagreements with the administration. West Ham have been another one of the top spenders in Europe thus far, ranking in 6th Europe-wide when it comes to their transfer spend. So they are really doing their best to put all of the pieces in place for Lopetegui. Füllkrug, Kilman, Somerville, the highly rated Palmeiras product Luis Guilherme, Todibo on loan from Nice. They are trying to make some big moves in this market to crack into that top 7. With the players they already have in the squad, coupled with those moves and with a fresh tactical voice in Lopetegui, it's hard to get a read on West Ham. They're mysterious, but I'm sure they will be better than what we saw last season. There's still quite the gap to navigate between the top 8 and the rest of the teams. A poor Man United were 8 points ahead of West Ham last season, so we'll see if they can bridge it. Now for the interesting clubs, aka teams that will probably finish between like 4th and 7th or so. Chelsea are sort of between cool outsiders and interesting clubs. Definitely not contenders, that's for sure, but since they managed to climb up to 6th last season, they go in interesting clubs. Chelsea, coupled with the spending they have access to, has finished in 12th, then 6th, in the last couple of years. I guess that spending is kind of part of the problem, isn't it? The plan is unclear. Beyond the fact that they want to buy younger talent that will hopefully grow with the club, anything else is a bit hard to understand. The influx of players that play the same position, bringing in a keeper like Jorgensen when you already have Petrovic, Kepa, and Sanchez. I mean, they really need to clear out the squad. They know that, and they need to do it ASAP. That has to be their highest priority. Then you have Maresca in the manager position, which is yet another change in the last couple of years after Pochettino, Potter, Tuchel. In general, Chelsea is just hard to understand, hard to see what the plan is. One of those situations where if Maresca can sort them out, they could be deadly. And I do think that by the time the latter half of the season rolls around, they will be a decent side. But then again, you can also see them going down a road where they continue to not click and be a bit disastrous, and then Maresca's sacked in January. My guess, similar to last season, Maresca sticks around and they get about 6th-ish. Aston Villa has to be the most interesting club when it comes to sort of their rock the boat power, you know? They're ranking high on the rock the boat index. Nobody has spent as much as them, had spent as much as them, I should say, across Europe. That is until Chelsea started up their spending spree once again. But Villa's ambitious owners are looking to build upon last season's 4th place finish by giving Emery some shooters. Amadou Onana for around 60 million euros, Ian Maatsen for about 45 million euros. There's over 100 right there. Then there's Philogene, Archer, Samuel Illing Jr., etc. They're spending big to build on what was already a very strong group of players under Emery's command, but they also had to in some cases, as they made some massive sales, such as Douglas Luiz to Juventus, Moussa Diaby, he left as well. They sold those two for over 110 million euros combined. I am an Emery believer, Emery respecter, and with the strong core that he already had at the club, Villa will once again be a difficult team to deal with. Definitely in a European place, but I don't see them cracking the top 3 and building on what they did last season. There's Newcastle, who went through injury hell last season, were looking poor in the first half, but collected themselves and finished in 7th. They had some PSR issues, so they have had a very, very quiet window so far this season, making some strange PSR transfers over the summer, such as Kubaminte. And that Anderson Vlachodimos move was an interesting one as well. High valuations on those two players. Strange stuff there. As a Benfica supporter, I know Vlachodimos isn't worth that much. Now, because of these PSR problems and the injuries, Newcastle have felt like they were once on an incredible upward trajectory, and things have stagnated a bit recently. They still have a ton of talent, and Eddie Howe and his boy Jason Tyndall are a talented duo of coaches. But without strengthening the squad, they feel like a 6th through 9th at the moment. It's just so damn competitive in those places now. Spurs are another team where it's difficult to see just where they will end up. Everything started so well with Big Ange. I love Big Ange, what a guy. But yeah, they sort of fell off a little bit as the season went on, as it felt more and more like they were hurting in that striker position, never replacing Harry Kane. I mean, that'll do it, right? Using Son or Richarlison or whomever else in that position, it wasn't working. They looked a little bit blunt. Now they have Dominic Solanke in that position, who is fresh off of a season where he scored 19 Premier League goals. The season prior, he scored 6. So I'm hesitant with this one. Is he a player who finally found his feet and will thrive under Ange? Or was that a one-off and he'll revert to type? Nobody knows at this point, as his Premier League scoring record isn't great. 29 goals total, 19 of which were scored just last season. They also brought in a trio of 18-year-olds in Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, and Min Hyuk Yang, though the latter is staying in South Korea for the time being. Overall, I like Tottenham under Ange, but do they have enough to crack the top 3, let alone the top 4? If they can sustain the level of play that they were at the beginning of last season, then definitely, especially with a striker in the team now. But that's a tall order, and their defense is a bit too risky for my liking. They concede a lot, so I think they'll be around 5th or 6th. Well, Arsenal used to be the team that plenty of people made careers out of on social media when they were frustrating supporters and underachieving. Look at all those social media giants that emerged from the Arsenal fandom. United has been that team for about a decade now as well, though with the size of the club, they're always going to have a big following for a creator that got it right. But there's a lot of proof that struggling and suffering gets you numbers on social media. Struggling and suffering, however, doesn't get you Wait a minute. Erik ten Hag got another trophy last season, making it 2 pieces of silverware in 2 seasons, despite a raft of terrible performances, despite being minutes away from elimination by Coventry in the Cup, for example, finishing bottom of their group in the Champions League. Diabolical stuff. They still found a way to win a trophy last season, and that piece of silverware put United's job hunt to bed. Mostly. As far as their talent hunt went, United have picked up quite a few players this summer, the first summer under Ratcliffe. They brought in Xerxes, I like him. They brought in both Matthijs de Ligt and Noussair Mazraoui as well to help with the back line, of which they desperately need, given yet another signing in Lenny Yoro is out for a few months, unfortunately, as their center back situation was pretty dire last season. Now Ten Hag has some depth there, as well as in the striker position. However, Matthijs de Ligt and Mazraoui's injury records, not great. United were absolutely torched by injuries last season, by the way, something Ten Hag wouldn't stop mentioning. But similarly to Chelsea, United is a team where if things start to click, they will be a very difficult side to play against. And clearly they have something to them when it comes to domestic cup competitions. That said, their ceiling feels like 4th, as I don't see them breaking past the top 3 contenders. I see Liverpool and Arsenal being fairly close, though I would have to give the edge to Arsenal given how good they have been the last couple of seasons, and the fact that Liverpool is in year 1 of their new era, the Arne Slot era. By the way, I saw this while I was lurking around on Twitter. That's all I do on Twitter nowadays, is just lurk. And I can't help but think about it whenever I see him now. Poch's face on Guardiola's head. Honestly, not a bad mix of managers to have, though. And Liverpool's preseason certainly hasn't looked bad at all, has it? Wins over Betis, Arsenal, United, and Sevilla, then a draw with Las Palmas. That one came on the same day, actually, that they played Sevilla, but later in the day and behind closed doors. The team that played against Sevilla seemed to be the starting 11 that Slot is looking to start this season at least. Maybe adjustments here and there, but overall, that seems to be the case. My God, how good did Trent Alexander-Arnold look, by the way? And a healthy Jota? That's spooky stuff if he can stay healthy. However, they didn't sign a 6, as Zubimendi has decided to stay with Real Sociedad. He's never leaving. While Liverpool are not likely to look for another midfielder, according to journalists like David Ornstein. At least for the time being. Maybe later in the window they'll pull a surprise. I am a Slot believer, and I think that Liverpool will grow into quite the beast under him, grow into the vision that Slot has when it comes to his football, but I don't know that they are quite at the point where Arsenal and Man City are at this time. I say this because each and every year, Arsenal spends a bunch of money and Arsenal continues to improve and get closer to Manchester City, the benchmark of Premier League performances at the moment. Cue someone commenting, the benchmark of financial charges maybe, or something like that. Go on, you can say it. But the point still remains. These players and this manager at Man City, when it comes to the performances on the pitch, they are the benchmark. Chelsea is the antithesis of Man City in the sense that they have spent a ton of money and nothing has worked. City spent and it has all been tied together by Guardiola and worked. That's what Arsenal is ascribing to. They've spent another 76 million this summer. Well, 31 million euros on David Raya's permanent move, but they've brought in Riccardo Calafiori to help at the back as previous investments like Timber are injured again. Should be back soon though. Tomiyasu is out for a while. Calafiori is needed as he can play in a variety of positions, even as a defensive midfielder. They've also signed professional pickpockets to steal from all of their players at a dinner. Yes, that's real. They did that. Another one of Arteta's coaching practices that is cringy to all of us on the outside, but hey, Arsenal improves season upon season. The team spirit seems great, so who are we to judge, right? No striker brought in yet for Arsenal, which has consistently been the question mark over the last couple of seasons. They're great in the midfield. They're great on the flanks. The center back positions are solid. The full back positions are quite decent as well. The goalkeeping position, great, but that striker position, it comes and goes. Havertz was genuinely good for long stretches for Arsenal, though Gabriel Jesus, a guy who has shown flashes in his career that he can be a genuinely devastating attacker, just can't stay healthy and can't be that high output striker that people expect him to be, have expected him to be. Or maybe they just want him to become that. Now, speaking of strikers, Manchester City just cashed in big time on one of theirs, letting Julian Alvarez depart to Atletico Madrid in a deal that could reach £81.5 million. They bought the guy for around 14 million. That's quite the cash in. Guy comes in, wins the treble, wins another league title, and he's gone. Makes sense though. I mean, you get to go somewhere where you will be central to the coach's plans. You don't have to live in Manchester anymore. You go somewhere where your native language is spoken, and you've already won everything with City. I don't blame him. Anyway, Savinho is the only new face thus far at City, but they haven't had any notable departures beyond Alvarez, keyword being notable. At least when you compare to last summer when they lost Laporte, Mahrez, Palmer, and Gundogan all in the same window. They have retained plenty of players thus far, despite the question marks above the heads of De Bruyne and Ederson. In preseason, they have looked really, really good. Even Jack Grealish has looked fantastic. I mean, they look good besides moments in the Community Shield match, but I mean, they always lose that match, you know? Part of the tradition. So did they mess up their title chances by actually winning it this year in a shootout? Maybe. To me, like I've already said a few times, when it comes to the performances of a team on the pitch, when it comes to results, silverware, City is still the gold standard. And I don't know that Arsenal will have done enough to close the gap this summer. I would still want to see a consistent striker at Arsenal before I can take them more seriously. Until then, this is Manchester City's title once again, the 5-peat, which is wild to say in the Premier League. Domination like this in the Premier League. Wow. So here it is, you prediction perverts. Here you can see my thrown together full table of predictions. Feel free to pause here and read it over. Take note of it so that when May comes around, you can see that it is the exact same as the real table, as I have never got a single prediction wrong in my life. Never. But yeah, thanks for joining me for this video, guys. I'm Adrian. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll have another video for you this week. It's all starting, man. Take care.